What did you think? Did you get a look? Did you have a chance to look at that excerpt from the meeting that with the Woodson Center talking about the black family?
Right, I saw the excerpt that was posted in the newsletter, but not the full thing. I really liked it, and I really yeah. So this brings up a thing that I've been thinking about, which I guess ties into that. I'm not actually sure I understand the term democratic deliberation as you guys are using it, but maybe I do. And in any case, it ties, I think, with something that I've always been a fan of, which is a kind of a project feeling to a conversation, right? When a conversation feels like these two or three or however many people are here to try to solve a problem, right? So it's an interesting conversation to listen to, but it's not just an exchange of opinions. It's the idea is you're trying to come up with a solution to something or figure out how to do a thing. I love that feeling about any kind of exchange.
Oh, I
So
think that's such an interesting point that you're making right now. I'd never thought of it quite that way, but you're right. The stakes are high and there's an immediacy and it's not abstract, you
yeah,
know. And the motives of the people participating, you know they're focused. There's like an underlying unity, whatever the nature of the dispute might be.
that's right. And even if you disagree, even if you have to argue, there is a different feeling to that argument. It's not you just trying to defend your position or your image or attack that person. Like if that's what's happening in the context of that kind of project style conversation, then this is a failure to, that you're not moving forward. You can be, coming from two completely opposite positions to a problem and argue about how to solve it, but you want there to be at least some sort of a compromise or moving forward at the end of that conversation if you're actually trying to solve a thing.
The reaction of Woodson himself and of some of the staff at his center
Mm-hmm.
to seeing the post at the newsletter was extremely positive. Some of their donors saw the post
Mm-hmm.
and said, "Ah, we see what you are up to in a different light. It's very positive." And Woodson himself commented about we could disagree, but we were disagreeing in the service of higher ground somehow. You
Right,
know
right,
that.
right.
So I don't know what democratic deliberation will mean by a dictionary definition, but I think the idea is that the partisanship and social division in the U.S., where everything gets drawn into this kind of, Trump, anti-Trump kind of thing. COVID seems to me is completely consumed with this, not just Trump, but it's completely caught by
Mm-hmm.
this. I don't even know how to describe it exactly with the mask and with Biden's vaccine speech last night,
I haven't heard that.
where he announced the mandating, and it was very muscular. It was very. He says we have a pandemic of the unvaccinated. He says do the right thing. Every company in America with 100 or more employees will be required by the government either to mandate the vaccine for people who work there, or if they don't get the vaccine, that they must be tested once each week.
Wow. Wow, that's
Every
a lot.
company in America with 100 or more employees will be required to do this.
Is there um is there a clear understanding whether that's appropriate authority? Like, does the president have the power to mandate such things?
We're going to find out. The angle that he's using is through a regulation called Occupational Safety and Health. And so there is a regulatory body, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, which can require employers to do things to preserve the health of the employee. For example, to have the workplace be free of any agent or substance that might, the safety protocols and things of this kind to ensure the quality of air that people are breathing, the risk of machinery being malfunction, and there could be so they could come in and they can require a coal mine or a smeltery, a steel plant, or a auto production facility to do certain things in their workplace to secure the safety of the worker. That's the regulation that they're invoking for this mandate. It will be challenged in the courts, and I don't know if it will hold up or not. And anyway, it's a long story that we needn't, spend too much time on. I'm just saying, in the midst of this kind of division, the idea that people can communicate, disagree about something that's important, but still stay in conjunction with each other, still stay connected. I think that's what democratic deliberation should mean somehow. Right. Not demonizing the other side, not trying to win at all cost, really trying to push the ball further down the field, trying to advance, the common interest, something like that.
Right. The way I understood it, because you also said that it's tied to your own kind of evolution in your own thinking, how you've changed opinions on certain issues over time. And so I guess I Googled democratic deliberation and found some things that I don't think, like there's more of a term that is used in political science or something that it seemed like going into the weeds. But just from that little paragraph that you shared with me, it seemed the image that came to my mind, the framework, the idea that came to my mind is you are developing your own thinking and trying to come to conclusions, trying to come to preliminary solutions to issues. And as you're doing that, you're not only engaged in, there are a few things that are happening. One, you're trying to be authentic in your own thought process, and some of that thought process is made public. Then with the Glenn Show, some of this is done through conversation. So you're talking to John, and both of you are trying to, be honest in your thinking and try to be careful in your thinking as it happens in lifetime with one another. And because the two of you are engaged in this thought process, now it's more than just your thinking. It's an exchange of ideas that is a thought process in itself. And then the other part that maybe I'm reading into it, but maybe not, is that thought process of yours, that evolution of ideas of yours, is happening not in a vacuum, but in some kind of interplay with how the society changes its views, how the societies, or maybe the Black communities, subsets of these societies, is evolving on certain issues. And so that's what I thought, like, democratic deliberation means. That it's like you are a part of the process of the society figuring out what it thinks should happen, what are the answers to the questions posed in front of America.
That's brilliant, Nikita. It's just, the juxtaposition, the setting alongside one another of, on the one hand, the internal deliberation. What do I really believe? The old Glenn and the new Glenn. The old Glenn from that early video I showed you, the new Glenn. Does he agree? Does he not agree? Harvard Press is putting out, after 20 years, my essays, The Anatomy of Racial Inequality. They're putting it back out again as a 20-year anniversary edition. And I had to write a new preface, a new introduction to the book. And I said, I don't agree with that guy. I don't, here's what he was saying, what I was saying, but I don't agree with him anymore about these things. So there's the internal deliberation. Are you being inconsistent when you change your mind? I was going to call this book Changing My Mind. That was my first title. When you change your mind, are you being inconsistent? Or are you growing? And can you trust yourself to have the motives that you think are noble about changing your mind rather than having noble motives that are base? I mean, there's an internal problem of integrity. Am I just trying to play to the crowd? Is that why I'm changing my mind? Am I caught up in some ego thing where I don't want to be in agreement with them because I'm smarter than everybody else, but I'm anyway, the internal contrasting that with the social deliberation, how people with different interests in different positions in society, black or white, conservative or liberal or whatever, could exchange their views and come to some kind of consensus and have some kind of social judgment. And those things are related to each other in interesting ways. And the role that I'm playing could be the role that I could try to develop for myself could be to put those two things in conversation with one another. Because I have this, confessional, I talk about my religion. I talk about my marriage. I talk about my issues, my son's sexuality, all of these different things. But there's also the public intellectual. There's the anti-woke crusade. There's what Glenn and John are trying to accomplish at the Glenn Show, or what Glenn is trying to accomplish at Brown University when he criticizes the president, but he has a class that students love him and he loves them. Anyway, I'm rambling a little bit, but I'm very stimulated by your observation.
So then the interesting question is how to turn that into like a method or a project, or how to make it more explicit. This is what I'm thinking about in terms of when we think about this like project style approach. Like, here's an issue, let's try to figure out how to solve it. If you somehow can make that sense of, like a work meeting, like imagine the question that is posed. I don't know, you're arguing about whatever it is, whether charter schools are a good thing or a bad thing, or whether the government should or shouldn't mandate vaccines or something. If you approach it in a style of a debate where you want your side to be excited about how you deliver your arguments, and you want to like destroy the opposition in this just public debate, you just want to win at the end of that conversation, that's one approach. But what if you and your opponent were meeting at a conference room in an office, and you were tasked with trying to figure out what are you actually going to do? Like, if you were charged with the decision making for the country, are we mandating or are we not mandating the people to be vaccinated? Then the conversation would evolve in a different way. It would go in a different way. And if you don't come to a conclusion, then you would feel, okay, we're stuck. Even though I'm obviously right, and I was so convincing, I thought, and maybe even people at the same table that were observing our clash thought I was right. Still, we didn't come to a conclusion, so we can't implement the decision. Then that's not a success, right? So that feeling is what I think is very important and can be very refreshing, and people would be really appreciative if we make
it has a reality television feel to it,
I suppose so.
It's like The Apprentice or something like that. Or one of these things where people come in with their business plan about how they're going to become rich, and they try to persuade the jury. Not quite.
Yeah, I guess I haven't seen a single episode of that, but I guess so. I guess we're in the for now in this like free association mode, but I was when we published the conversation you and I had on the Glenn Show feed. I re-listened to the clips that we posted, and a memory came to mind that I want to share with you, which was it ties to that conversation about whether or not it's productive to look at the woke crowd as people kind of stuck in an infantile way of thinking, and if that is how we're approaching it, then what is the right way to engage with them? And I thought of I switched schools from the 7th grade to the 8th grade. The 8th grade was in a different school, and that year was the first time when a teacher approached, that was a particular teacher that treated us as if we're not children. And I remember the like specific moment. So it would always be during recess, we're sitting in class, and it was always loud, and everybody's shouting, everybody doing their own thing. And then the bell rings, and we're supposed to stop doing that and be in class mode now. And usually it took a while, and the teacher had to like calm the kids down somehow. But everybody up to that point was treating us as children and was telling us, okay, settle down, it's time to do the class thing now, etc., etc. And then there was this one teacher, a history teacher, who I think it was like the first lesson probably, or one of the first ones, and we're causing this ruckus, the bell rings, and we're continuing with the loud noises, and she looks at us and goes like, what is this? Like, this, you're not supposed to behave like that. That in Russian, there's the formal and informal way of talking to people. It's what you used to have that in English, thou and you.
No,
right?
I'm with it. I studied German too. Yeah.
Right. And so she was the first one to address children with the formal, respectful, pronoun.
Aha.
And I remember everybody was stunned. The 30 kids in the class suddenly had to switch to a different mode of behavior just because they were now expected to be an adult. They were not being, the purpose of both of these kinds of teachers was the same. You need to calm down and start working. But everybody before that woman were trying to force it on us. We're children. We need to listen to them telling us how to behave. And this person was treating us as fellow human beings, adults, and she expected us to behave like adults, but not forcing us to do so. So she was like, her facial expression was she's surprised that we're behaving like little kids, even though we're 14 now. What is this now? And so she was the most successful, is what I'm saying, at calming
I get
the
it.
class
I get
down.
it. No, that's very good. And you think likewise with respect to those who are woke, what might be more effective,
right,
by having higher expectations for them and showing that you're disappointed in them.
right, and not like break like. I mean, if you think it's a cliche now, but all of these YouTube videos that are titled "Jordan Peterson destroys woke," etc., etc.
Yeah,
that would not be okay. If a teacher destroys a student, that's not the appropriate approach, right?
okay. Yeah, I agree.
And so if you find again a way, I guess I'm throwing different things here, but what I'm trying to kind of map out is an attitude that could unite people for the time of a conversation, again, at least in that project of the conversation, right? So not to try to fight with the other side, but try to make the interaction productive. To not lose, if there's an audience, to not lose that audience. It's like I often think of stand-up comedians as a metaphor for different kinds of engagements, and a stand-up comedian, I think there's like implicit or sometimes explicit in sort of a philosophy of a successful stand-up comedian is you're supposed to be able to make different crowds laugh. if the only people who laugh at your jokes are people who agree with your opinions, then you're not really doing the art of stand-up. You're now sharing opinions, and people clap because they agree. The skill is to make the people who don't agree with your stuff to go along, with you for the duration of your act, to turn them for that 30 minutes or however long you have them for. And so that is another, angle to think about here. Can you, for the time of the conversation you're having, get people to at least follow your train of thought, to not be just in the mode of, I agree or I disagree, I hate this person or I'm in love with that person, to do this like think along thing.
I'm listening to you, but I'm also thinking. I love the reference to stand-up. I want to do something with Noam Dworman in New York City. I want to do something with him.